One of the most recognizable figures to come from the adaptations of J.R.R. Tolkien's works is the small, slimy creature known as Gollum. Gollum made his initial appearance in The Hobbit and continued to be a significant character throughout the Lord of the Rings trilogy. In this video, I'd like to talk about the history of Gollum, and it's a story that begins long before we first hear his and Bilbo's riddles in the dark. Gollum began his life as Smeagol in the later parts of the Third Age as a Riverland Stoor, which was one of the three main kinds of hobbits. Smeagol spent the early years of his life living on the banks of the Anduin River with his extended family under his grandmother, the matriarch. This was during the time known as the Watchful Peace, which was a 4th century period when Sauron, who was then known as the Necromancer, fled to the east from Dol Guldur in order to hide himself. Smeagol apparently received a fair amount of education in some of the history of Middle-earth, as during his youth he had learned of the events concerning the War of the Last Alliance against Sauron. It was during this time that he became familiar with the riddle game, along with a few riddles that were also known to the hobbits in the Shire. It was around the year 2463 of the Third Age, on Smeagol's birthday, that he and his cousin Deagol went boating in the Gladden Fields, and later being pulled into the water by a large fish, Deagol discovered the one ring in the riverbed. Upon seeing the ring, Smeagol fell immediately under its influence, demanding it as a birthday present. When Deagol refused, Smeagol strangled him and hid his body. Afterwards, he returned home, keeping the ring a secret and using its invisibility to perform mischievous deeds. Over time, Smeagol was entirely corrupted by the ring and came to refer to it as his precious or his birthday present. Eventually, Smeagol began to be avoided by those in the community and became an outcast who could only survive by stealing. He was also the target of ridicule from his fellow hobbits, who would often curse and kick him. As they did so, he would bite their feet. As a loner, he would often mutter to himself, and a gurgle began to form in his throat, and for this, he was given the name Gollum. Because of his mischievous nature, he became such a blight to the community that his grandmother, the matriarch, banished him from their family and hobbit hole. After this banishment, he traveled up the Anduin River and followed a stream. For a time, he dwelled by deep pools, and with the ring's invisibility, was able to survive by catching and eating raw fish. Around the year 2470, the sun started to scorch Gollum's skin and eyes, at which point, desiring darkness, he followed the stream to its source within the misty mountains, making his way into a small cave from which the stream flowed. The ring's influence continued to twist Gollum's mind and body over the years, prolonging his life far beyond its natural limits. He became disfigured and grotesque in appearance, and with the ring's continued influence, he sank further and further into madness. He came to view hobbit and elven food as repulsive, and for over 400 years, Gollum lived in his cave eating raw fish, as well as the occasional goblin from the nearby goblin town. While living in the misty mountains, Gollum developed a split personality, with his good personality, Smeagol, who was able to vaguely recall moral qualities such as friendship and love, while his bad personality, Gollum, was the personification of selfishness, being a slave to the ring, determined to kill anyone who tried to take it. As he would talk to himself, these two personalities would quarrel with each other. In the year 2941, the ring abandoned Gollum as he unknowingly lost it while squabbling with an imp goblin in the caves that led to his subterranean lake. Soon thereafter, the hobbit Bilbo Baggins came across Gollum's lair and subsequently found the ring. This is when the riddle game takes place. After the game, Gollum refused to show Bilbo the way out of the tunnels and plotted to murder him. When he went to fetch his birthday present and found that it was missing, he suddenly realized the answer to Bilbo's last riddle: "What have I got in my pocket?" This drove Gollum into a furious rage as he chased the hobbit into the tunnels, but the ring's invisibility allowed Bilbo to evade and to follow the creature to the entrance of the cave. Bilbo jumped over Gollum to escape, Gollum did not immediately pursue Bilbo out of fear of being caught by the goblins, and so he remained in his cave for 2 years. As he stewed in his disgust and hatred for Bilbo and his plight, the effects of his addiction and withdrawal from the ring became so great that he overcame his fear of the light and the orcs and set out in search of Bilbo. Gollum traveled by night, avoiding the sun and moon to the best of his ability, following Bilbo's trail through Mirkwood until he arrived at Lake Town and Dale. It was here that he learned more about Bilbo and where he was from. He then turned west, journeying once again through Mirkwood, still in pursuit of the thief. As he traveled, he ate eggs and young animals from nests and holes, and even broke into houses approaching cradles of the babies of the woodmen, among whom rumors spread about a blood-drinking ghost. During this time, he was tracked by the elves of Mirkwood, who were apparently cooperating with Gandalf in doing so. When he once again reached the great river Anduin, he turned southwards toward Mordor. This is where the Wood Elves lost his trail. Around the year 2980, Gollum reached the confines of Mordor, where he discovered the secret stair near Minas Morgul and became acquainted with Shelob, becoming her spy, worshipping her and bringing her food. It was speculated by the orcs of Cirith Ungol, who had seen him on several occasions, that Gollum was too thin and wiry for Shelob to bother eating. They thus referred to Gollum as her sneak. Gollum stayed in this area for some 30 years until he was eventually captured by Sauron's agents and taken to the dungeons of Barad-dûr, where he was tortured and forced to reveal everything he knew about the ring. Afterwards, strangely, Gollum was freed by Sauron's agents, only to be caught by Aragorn and interrogated by Gandalf, who was able to learn details regarding Gollum's history with the ring. However, Gollum did not reveal many details after his encounter with Bilbo, as he feared the minions of Mordor more. After Gandalf's interrogation, he was handed over to the Sylvan Elves living in Thranduil's kingdom in Mirkwood. In June of the year 3018, orcs raided the Elves of Mirkwood, allowing Gollum to escape. He then set off in search of the Shire. As he arrived once again to the Misty Mountains, he chose to pass through Moria, but could not make it out of the doors of Durin. Fortune turned to Gollum's favor with the arrival of the Fellowship and their subsequent entry into the West Gate. It is speculated that this meeting was not a coincidence, as perhaps some of Sauron's or Saruman's spies may have revealed details regarding the Fellowship's whereabouts to Gollum. From Moria, Gollum followed the Fellowship to Lothlorien and trailed their boats down the Anduin by floating on a log. When Frodo and Sam struck out on their own towards Mordor, he continued tracking them, and in a confrontation with the 2 hobbits, he was subdued by Frodo, who leashed Gollum with an elvish rope, the mere touch of which pained him. Gollum then took an oath to help them, swearing by the precious itself, promising to guide the hobbits as they made their way to Mordor. When they arrived at Mordor's Black Gate, Gollum convinced them to instead go south, where they would take the secret stairway. While Frodo was able to take advantage of the Smeagol personality in getting the creature to stay faithful to his oath, after they were captured by Faramir, he felt betrayed, which caused his Gollum personality to take control. When they arrived at Cirith Ungol, while the hobbits were asleep, Gollum visited the great spider Shelob, who he plotted with to lead the 2 hobbits into her lair. After Frodo and Sam successfully escaped their encounter with Shelob, Gollum pursued them and attacked when the 2 hobbits had almost reached their destination. He failed, however, in his attempt to get the ring. After defeating him, Sam had the opportunity to kill Gollum, but out of sheer pity and disgust, he relented and turned his back on the beaten creature. Gollum was able to recover and found Frodo standing on the edge of the Cracks of Doom, putting on the ring, claiming it for himself. Gollum once again attacked and was finally successful in attaining the ring by biting it off of Frodo's invisible finger. He then teetered on the edge of the pit with the ring and Frodo's finger, lost his balance, and fell in. The ring was unmade in the molten lava, with Gollum perishing in it as well. Interestingly, if Frodo or Sam had chosen to kill Gollum on any previous occasion, chances are that Sauron would have regained the ring, as he knew where Frodo was as soon as he put it on. In retrospect, the character of Gollum plays a pivotal role in the outworking of the Lord of the Rings saga. His story highlights important lessons regarding redemption, loneliness, greed, and addiction. He is perhaps one of the most complex characters in the Lord of the Rings, and with each reread, one is sure to pick up new details regarding the intricacies of this iconic character. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Lord of the Rings and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. And I'm curious as to what your favorite part of Gollum's story is. Are there any lessons that stand out to you from his life? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you all so much for your support. And as always, have a very nerdy day.